Morning all. I thought I'd take a look at game 4 from yesterday of the Kasparov-Karpov match. Kasparov played white, played d4. Karpov played d5 again. After c4 we saw the queen's gambit declined. So that's where black is not capturing on c4. It's not a real gambit anyway, because white can forcibly regain the pawn. After knight c3, bishop e7, Kasparov took this opportunity to exchange on d5, fixing the centre a bit. So Kasparov actually plays bishop f4, and the bishop, look, it's eyeing the dark squares in particular. Karpov played c6 here. Now queen c2 was played. After bishop d6, Karpov is using, another development move just to try and trade the bishops. But on the other hand, his bishop was freed by Kasparov's exchange in the centre earlier. So his pieces are fundamentally okay. Kasparov took on d6, and note now, these dark squares are being weakened a little bit more now. So as well as the fixed centre, this pawn is very important for providing, potential outposts on these key dark squares. So black may have more problems, as evidenced by this bishop exchange. After e3, knight e7. So the knight's not usually deploying there; it's usually on f6. So Karpov is tailoring his piece configuration based on what's happened, and the fact he hadn't developed to f6, it's more flexible. So from e7, potentially black is going to play bishop f5 at some point later, or knight f5 is supported. So bishop d3, and now we see this move g6. So again, that supports the idea that black could exchange off the light square bishops or play knight f5. So using that f5 square. Kasparov, maybe, he wanted to stop f5 being used by black. And his next move neglects development again to play something which is more tailored to the position perhaps. He played f3. Now ordinarily, moving pawns is like providing a source of weaknesses, but it's not very easily exploitable here. White's potentially going to play e4. Once d4 is protected, though, knight e2 and e4 for example. But there's another point, f3 also supports the move g4, so if white wanted to deprive black of this f5 square, that's one way to do it. After knight d7, Kasparov plays knight ge2, so it raises this question, is e4 going to be played here? Or is it going to be something else? Black just castled and white just castled. And now Karpov played c5, so he's putting a little bit of pressure on the white centre, and also threatening tactically to embarrass the white bishop with c4. There'll be no squares to the bishop, so Kasparov sidestepped this threat by playing queen d2. Also note, the queen on the dark squares now, potentially after e4 it can potentially go to h6 or f4, or anywhere on this dark square diagonal. It might be useful. Karpov now, he kept the tension for a bit longer in the centre. He played a6. But this might be the start of a slightly dodgy plan, in that if he's going to play b5, the c5 square is going to be more critical than usual. So that's something to bear in mind. Rook a d1 was played. So like in the second game, this rook to d1 move is proving very useful. And here, Karpov strangely released the tension in the centre. Maybe he didn't have to do this, but it simplifies, I think, the plans for white. So he played c takes d4, and after e takes d4, from a white point of view, we can see that white doesn't have to worry about c takes d at any point now, and can more concretely rearrange his pieces without that constant worry. So after knight f6, actually he plays, a flank attack. Now, one of the antidotes usually of a flank, pawn move, which was played is g4, is the counter attack in the centre. But because black has just released the tension in the centre, it's more difficult than usual to punish this. There's a slight vacuum around white's king, and as you'll know from my blitz games, often when I play g4, I often lose, especially when my king's on the king's side. But Kasparov really knows what he's doing. When he creates a weakness, he makes sure it's not really exploitable that easily. So black actually played king g7. There's a couple of points now behind this pawn, as well as, you know, getting control of that square to stop knight f5s or bishop f5s, which would simplify black's position, because this bishop is slightly inferior to the white bishop. The other point of this move is that maybe, you know, white's going to play knight g3 and g5 just to gain a bit of space. In fact, white played here queen f4. So Kasparov is not afraid of trading queens off. He really wants to sort of develop his dark square strategy. So like this square and this square in particular will be weaker later after the exchange of queens, because black hasn't got the dark square bishop after all. So the only protector at the moment, you know, in terms of not being knights, is this queen. So after rook d8, rook fe1, the pressure's slightly building up. These rooks are just slightly better than the black rooks, and the knights, you know, are quite good as well. Although black knights are okay, but black's, you know, more passive here, and he plays another committal move now, b5. So look at this c5 square. It's slightly weaker now, and Kasparov, you know, he looks at the position, I think, in a very, you know, positional way now. Doesn't care about going for an attack if there's other ways, you know, to get strategic advantage. So he takes on d6 and now plays knight f4. So immediate threat of rook takes e7. So black defends his knight with king f8, and now Kasparov gains a bit more space on the king side by playing h4, and it's also creating this tension. Is he going to play g5 or h5? Because they're both you know, pretty useful moves in their own right. Now Karpov played bishop d7, and potentially, you know, he's got the idea of maybe b4 and even bishop b5 to try and trade off the light square bishops. Kasparov is not too concerned about that, though, at the moment. He played just king f2, and now knight e8 was played. So there's unpleasant pressure on the black position, and Kasparov decides that he wants to use this c-file. He plays rook c1. After rook c8, Kasparov clamps down on black playing b4 by playing a3. Now potentially this is slightly controversial if black ever arranged to get a knight on c4, because b3 will be harder to play. For example, we could imagine knight here to here to here to c4. But this didn't occur in the game. It's easier to say than to do. But the knight did go to c7. Now knight ce2 was played. Now I think Kasparov, he's got a very, very simple plan here. Basically, you know, to double up rooks. And if black ever takes on c5, then d takes would not only give a potentially dangerous passed c pawn, it would also mean this knight, which has just gone to e2, can go into d4, can blockade black's isolated queen pawn, and also support, you know, an intensifying of pressure on the queen side. Now, when I was watching this on the live relay, I was actually half expecting knight a8 to b6 to c4 as a plan. Karpov played something different. He played rook b6, which, you know, maybe supports b4. But again, Kasparov, you know, he's not concerned about b4 again. He plays just rook c5. But with, you know, rook b6, you know, black's lost that knight b6 plan. It would take much longer to implement now, and white can also double up rooks. After rook c5, he's getting a very uncomfortable position. He plays knight e6, so trying to get some relief for exchanging pieces. Kasparov obliged. He took on e6, and now he's simply doubled up rooks. So a small but very nagging, annoying advantage. And also, that's combined with Karpov getting very, very short of time. I think he's about two minutes down on the clock. So he's coming into his last minute on the clock. After knight f4, king d8, b4 now. So clamping down on a b4 from black. And look at that c5 square. It's quite magnificent, you know, doubling up rooks like this. And so rook takes is always going to be unpleasant, maybe because of d takes. So now rook a8, as if a5 is going to be played. But now Kasparov strikes out with Karpov very short on time by playing h5. So this presents all sorts of new opportunities, like hg and rook h1. And because the king's crawled to d8, there's going to be some dangerous threats now, you know, like rook h8 check. So Karpov played rook d6. So he's preparing, you know, some sort of defence. He probably had to calculate quite a bit there, but he's getting so short on time. Then after bishop e2, g5, so he was concerned about hg and these possibilities. After knight d3, unfortunately, Karpov ran out of time. So it is a rapid match, and time is a critical, factor in this match, not just trying to play the most perfect moves. White has a big advantage here. It's unpleasant for black. There's all sorts of plans available, like maybe king g3 and f4, maybe even peel open the f file. This knight's always eyeing e5 and c5, the critical dark squares. It's just unfortunate that it wasn't such a fight here, with Karpov losing on time. So that makes it 3-1 to Kasparov. I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.